All right, crypto market updates. Happy Thursday, folks. Hope everyone's been enjoying this bull run. So I'll just dive right into Bitcoin right now. I think Chris is scuba diving somewhere, so he's probably in an ocean floating around. All right, so let's see. Bitcoin. Here's the $1 million question. Today we had some really interesting price action. Kind of popped, attempted breakout that got sold into fairly quickly, right? People, CNBC posting that they went long at 9K, Spaghetti memes being broken out. So, big selling. But now it seems like it's popular. Like a lot of people see these Vegeta memes as an inverse indicator. That seems really popular. So I wonder, because my entire feed was filled with it. So I wonder if we're going to run to 10K. We'll see. Interesting thing, if you look at the larger picture, one thing I want to make really clear right now, right? The higher the price goes up, the worse the risk to reward is for breakout trades, right? In my opinion, it's one thing to break out trade. If I were to do breakout trades, my preferred style is closer to the bottom, right? That way you have much better risk to reward. When I see prices up like this, my mindset starts to go a bit towards where would be a good area for selling or taking profit and so on and so forth, right? But the thing is that at 9K, we're kind of in no man's land right now, because we just broke this area, this level of resistance. We had a throwback to test it, and now we're at 9K, and a lot of people are calling the top, and it could very well be the top. However, I'm kind of just waiting to see if we at least can pop up to 10K. And if we did get a parabolic candle, you never know, could always shoot up to the next level as well. But the higher the price goes, like we are due for a major correction, but it won't necessarily be as obvious as people think it is. So I want to address a few common questions that I keep hearing. So there's a lot of people that might not feel like they might not have enough Bitcoin, enough crypto. There's a lot of people that might still have a bunch of money sitting on the sidelines. In my opinion, regardless of wherever the top is, I think a good dip buy zone is anywhere from 35 to 40% from wherever the local top is, right? I say local top because that's where we'll have a correction, probably a 35 to 40% correction, higher low, bounce, consolidation, and then perhaps another breakout move upwards. And that can take a while. So it doesn't really matter. If it were me and I wanted more Bitcoin right now, I would not be buying at $8,600. I wouldn't just be buying here. Now, that said, there's a lot of people who've been waiting for a dip for a long time. I think people have been waiting for a dip since like right here, right? So there's still a lot of money sitting on the sidelines. And the reason why, there's a couple of reasons why it's called disbelief from a market sentiment standpoint, is because the bear trend has a way of crushing people's hopes and belief, right? People were believers up here, believers in the new paradigm. They had their beliefs stamped out, trampled on. This was the line of hope that was broken. Capitulation. And then their beliefs get crushed, right? Their belief gets crushed. Now, obviously, optimism grows and such, but the thing is that people become so, they're flinching. This is, disbelief is what I call flinching. Like people are so nervous. Is this the top? Is this the top? Is the market going to dump and punish me now? Is it going to punish us now? You know, it's like this fear or paranoia of yeah, bull trap anxiety. That's a good one. And so they'll short, right, all the way up. And of course, you can, if you short the right times, you can still make money, right? You can still make money, right? Like right here, obviously, if someone shorted up there, they still would have made some money, right? So the thing is, the name of this game is always patience, right? What's the most patient path? Waiting for a good dip on the first correction, or, you know, market buying into close to resistance after the market's gone up for several months, right? Something to think about. Buy low, sell high. Well, why is it that everyone wants to buy now? How come, where were all the buyers at 3K, 4K, 5K? Where were all the buyers? I mean, obviously there's a lot of buyers in our group, in our room. And there's obviously other traders who bought, because if for every seller, there's a buyer, right? But, you know, suddenly I'm seeing a lot of people crawl out of the woodwork, social media, and, you know, new people, lots of new people coming in too, and suddenly everyone wants to buy again. And I'm like, okay, well, let's just look at this. So market's gone up, you know, Bitcoin's gone up like 200%, and people want to buy again, right? So the markets will do whatever they can to mess with traders' heads, to mess with your head, right? That point where you just can't take it any longer, and you just like FOMO buy. Then the actually, here's another question, because I can't tell anyone what to do. I don't tell people what to do. People make their own decisions. Someone wants to buy. You know, maybe, who knows, maybe this is like a parabolic event and it shoots up and breaks the all-time high and you feel like a superstar, right? And that could happen. There's all kinds of probabilities and possibilities. And so I'm not so much trying to make market predictions as I'm trying to like read price action, market sentiment as we go, and then just identify key levels, right? And also I stick with the very, very simple rule, two-dimensional trading strategy: buy low, sell high. That's it. It's very simple, right? The lower it goes down here, buy as it capitulates. And then, you know, eventually there might come a point where I'd like to see maybe 10K. If we do tag 10K, I might take a little bit of profit off of the table. A lot of my bags are kind of longer term that I bought on this recent round, and I still have some old school BTC as well from 2015 and such. But you know, I might take a little bit off the table if we can tag 10K area, right? That will actually be my first take profit of the year. Not a ton. I'm not gonna, you know, sell a ton. I'm still being very, very patient. I think this market cycle is still just kind of getting cooking, but, you know, traditionally we've had, as you all know, many 40, 35, 40% corrections along the way. So the thing is, one can buy at any price. One can certainly buy now. However, ask yourself, you know, if one were to buy, an important question to ask oneself is, am I comfortable with a 30 to 40% drawdown if I buy right now? If I woke up tomorrow and the market's dumped 20% in a day, and we get a couple weeks of selling or whatnot, would I be comfortable with that? Would I feel okay with that? Well, there's also a middle path, right? Middle path is scaling in, so on and so forth. But in my opinion, I think you know, dips are where it's at as far as these corrections are concerned. Look at this. Look at these corrections on this previous bull trend. So the thing is this time going to be different? Or is the price just going to shoot up forever and we'll never get at that 35 to 40% correction, right? Now, again, still waiting to see if we could push up a little bit more. If I look at, let's say, just because there isn't really a point of resistance here at 9K, I figure we make it to 9K, we might as well make it to nice round 10. And this little shakeout we just had today, you know, be a good way to mess with everyone's heads, right? Now there's a bit of bearish divergence here. However, bearish divergence alone doesn't mean anything. It is a sign that you know, buyers are kind of losing strength. However, we also had bearish divergence over, let's see, did we have it over here? Kind of had it a little bit over here, but not as much because we made a new swing high, right? So let's say this popped up to 10K and we get a lower high over at 10K. Nice round number, or if we blast past that, we go straight there with some bearish divergence, and that could definitely be a sign of some toppiness. Now, as far as altcoins are concerned, altcoins are still highly correlated. So we'd likely see some red in alts, but just because we have a big correction doesn't necessarily mean the bull trend is over and that it's cause for panic, right? Let's look at some larger big picture time frames. I'll show you something. Let's look at the 1 month. A lot of people kind of get confused about bull trends versus bear trends. Still see a lot of people on social media saying we're still in the bear trend and all this kind of stuff. Here's something interesting. You can see if you look at Hikinashi, which is basically just averages instead of the high, low, close, open. It just shows averages. And you can see on the 1 month Hikinashi and that entire trend, the entire bull trend, all the way from 2015, when we broke out of accumulation, there's only 1 month of red. There's one single red candle on the Hikinashi. Every single other candle on that entire bull trend, corrections and all, have been green, right? Oh, look at this bear trend. Every single 1 month candle in the Hikinashi has been red. What a miracle. Right now, we just produced 2 green ones. This 1 month candle is really big. It's showing a lot of strength in this recovery. Let's look at the previous cycle. Oh, look at this entire run up from here, all green. And then there's a little bit of a pause here, but mostly red. Boom, 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 boom. Then we go into green. Here's like green, 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 so on and so forth, right? So, you know, we only saw, and you know, unless there's only one last possibility for the bears. Unless this is some kind of elongated fractal, and this, we got to always look at both sides, right? Unless this is some kind of longer fractal and these couple of months represent something similar to this. But based on, you know, market fundamentals, based on the inflows of new capital, new money coming in, based on, you know, new investment products being created for retail and institutional investors, based on the technological adoption of Bitcoin. It's not just a market, it's also a technology, right? And technologies can have rapid growth spurts. Based on a lot of stuff, I'm kind of leaning towards, you know, this being the start of a new cycle, but you never know, right? You never know. Maybe it is the ultimate bull trap, but I'm personally myself, I'm leaning towards this being a new cycle. Now, what would be a sign? Let's just play this out, what to look for, because Obviously, there are no absolutes in the market, right? Good traders realize that there are no absolutes in the market. You want to tempt fate. You want to taunt fate. Just speak in absolutes. If you really want to taunt fate, go out on social media and proclaim it to the world in absolutes about what the market's going to do. Right? Hubris comes before the fall, right? There's a reason why I like to stay balanced, even though I'll have leanings. Do you know where my leanings are? When I put my money on the line, you know that that's where I'm leaning towards. That said, actions speak louder than words. That said, one must still always entertain both possibilities to have some level of balance and equanimity, right? And to not tempt fate. So it's kind of like the irony of life, really. We had a nice little push today in altcoins. That was quite interesting. So that's Bitcoin. I'm still being patient. See if we can just at least tag this area right here. That'd be nice, clean, round number. Let's see. Now, if we were to go back to regular candles. So here's, if I wanted more BTC, or if I wanted to long Bitcoin, here's what my strategy would be moving forward into the future, into this bull trend. Let's pretend we don't know where the top is, so let's pretend this was the top. Where would 38 to 40% be? It'd be around this area. 38% would tag right at prior resistance over here. Move it up. Maybe it bounces at around the 35 area, closer to 6K, where there's support. Maybe it goes a little bit lower just to really scare people and take out some extra stops. Goes down to that area, right? So if we continue on this bull trend after a correction, if we had a correction and we continue on this bull trend, then this general box should be, usually I'd stack multiple orders. It's like a fishing expedition. You don't quite know exactly where the bottom's going to be, but general area, one can stack some limit buy orders. And then that's what I do for a bounce. If it goes up to 10K, which is kind of what I'm waiting for, see if we can at least tag up here, then a 40% drop would be even more structurally perfect in that it would hit 6K zone. And so in that instance, probably anywhere from like 6,400 to 6K if it corrected from the 10K level, so on and so forth, right? So that's the good news. The good news is when we do get a correction, regardless of wherever the top is, when we do get a correction, usually there's a nice bounce play. Usually there's some nice volatility. One can trade that, right? That's my preferred trading strategy and style, so I'm going to stick with that. So that's kind of my plan going forward. So basically, let me just recap and reiterate what's happened and what my plan is. So we capitulated, went in heavy on a bunch of stuff, and so far I've just been trend riding, right? So far I haven't done much. I'm just being patient, waiting, because I've set much higher price goals, knowing that perhaps if we hit some counterforce, that perhaps it would take a lot of people by surprise. The markets have a way of shooting down lower than a lot of people anticipate, and oftentimes shooting up higher than what people anticipate. And in my opinion, it's already shot up higher than what a lot of people anticipated, right? So So I already did all my heavy lifting as far as like my spot buys and orders and stuff. I already did my heavy lifting. My bags are lock and loaded. I couldn't possibly take on any more risk right now. I've probably taken on, some of the largest positions I've ever done before, and I'm lock and loaded. There's really not much for me to do in that regard except for take profit at various milestones, right? I'm being patient because I'm also reducing taxable events, all that stuff. That said, moving forward, if I do see opportunities scream at me like bounce plays, then it's like a mouse running in front of a cat, right? How could I not pull the trigger on a bounce play if there's one presented before me, right? So if the market offers you some food as a guest, then it would be rude of me to decline. So if the market wants to offer me some money on a silver platter, then who am I to disavow the markets of its desires? Anyways, so we shall see. We shall see. So I'll be patient, right? There's not much for me to do. I'm not going to buy anything up here or whatever. If it starts shooting up higher, I might lean towards a short. But other than that, I would be looking to buy bounce plays between 30 to 40%. Now, what would be a sign of this being a bull trap? Just to look at the other side of the market, in my opinion, a sign would be a drop lower than 40%. If it went to 45, 50%, drop lower than that, right? If it went like this, then I'd say, okay, perhaps that's invalidated and we're leaning more towards a bull trap scenario. So I think that's certainly possible. I don't think it's probable. Obviously, I could be wrong. I don't think it's probable. I do think it's possible, but I'm definitely leaning towards bullish trade setups. And obviously, another difference too that we've been seeing in this recent run-up is that breakout trades have been producing fruit again, right? Horizontal breakout trades. There's you could have like a diagonal breakout trade, right? Or you could have a horizontal breakout. They seem to be producing some fruit with some follow through and a bit of momentum. I'll get to questions near the end, folks. And probably better to put them in the Q&A section because as people type, I'll probably lose where the question is. So, all right, so that's Bitcoin. A little bit of correlation here. Cosmos seems like it popped off again today. So let's start. I'm going to start off with some of the bags that I'm in. Big news yesterday. Tezos had its first protocol upgrade, first on-chain governance voting upgrade. I think it was today or yesterday, or I guess depending on the time zone. So that's interesting. No buyer selling the news, no selling the news. Typically, you get a sell on the news event, but this is what I said about the subtle nuances. I actually said this yesterday in a boot camp class. I said, don't be an automaton, right? Trading crypto is a science and an art, right? There are rules, but sometimes there's inference, and sometimes the rules don't always apply, and there's no guarantee that there's 100% anything with the rules, right? So, as a rule of thumb, I think selling the news in crypto can be very multidimensional. What I mean by that is that if a market starts spiking, if it starts pumping leading up to a news event, not just rallying because it's bullish and everything's bullish, but if a particular market, people start FOMOing leading up to the to the event, similar to CME futures right up here, right? The launch of CME futures is a top, selling the news, right? Then that's usually a good time to sell the news because you're going counter force. All of a sudden, everyone is FOMOing, fear missing out. They're all buying, 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 buying. Hit that counter force. But if nothing happens, if a price is consolidating and just going a little bit sideways and even lagging behind the rest of the market a little bit during this bull pennant, then that doesn't necessarily apply, right? Because there's no spike into it. So where's the counter force, right? So it's almost like it was almost kind of like it was a non-event. You know, Tezos is like one of those markets that just kind of creeps up quietly. It's been just creeping up quietly. So you can kind of see a bit of a bull pennant here. My opinion, if we were to break this pennant, I wouldn't be surprised, like 100% extensions, $2.50. I wouldn't be surprised to see 1.618 at close to $3, right? As a next possible level up. You know, depending on what Bitcoin does, like if Bitcoin, here's the thing, if Bitcoin, let's say Bitcoin pushes up and it starts topping out and all coins start to spike and you get a big spike and another push past all-time highs on altcoins, then that could be a good opportunity to perhaps take a little bit of profit off of the table. Most of my Tezos is longer term bags, right? Majority of it's for like much higher targets. Well, I say longer term. I mean, if it were to give me $10 tomorrow, then I would definitely take some profit off the table. That wouldn't be too long term, at least for my initial profit target, right? Looking at Bitcoin, let's just go back to Bitcoin here. We can see that the stochastic RSI in the 1 week has been throttled and quote unquote overbought now for probably months, right? And this is why I say, like, you can't just take one indicator. You can't bake a cake with one ingredient, right? You can't bake a cake with just icing. You can't bake a cake with just one cherry, right? So this is just one ingredient. So yes, the market is severely overbought, right? What I would be looking for right now, but it's been overbought for a couple of months. I think the last time it flatlined this hard was right here. I don't know if that was only a month. Right here, actually, the last time it really flatlined for this long, or maybe even longer, was this move right here, this little parabola right here. And then this correction was pretty huge. So this was the last time we've gone this flat on the stochastic RSI, right? Now, the weekly close is coming up on Sunday. So you don't necessarily have to try to predict where the top is. How this candle closes will be very important on Sunday. If the Sunday candle closes like this, kind of like you know, a wick here, a wick there, and then the body of the candle being thin, and in the middle, that could be a transition candle, right? It could be kind of almost similar to a transition here. And if it breaks down, if the weekly closes like that, and then it takes out 84.5 and goes lower than that after that weekly close, then in my opinion, that would be a sign of a local top heading towards a correction, right? If the weekly candle closes green, there's a chance we might push up a bit more. If it closes like this, but then it doesn't break down below this, and the next one is green, then this is just a small, tiny little correction, and then we push on forward, right? So I think we're definitely at a very important area right now. We're at a key inflection point, coming in between various different points of resistance, right? The markets don't necessarily go up forever unless it just turns into one of those double bubbles unless it does like one of these, right? But you know, maybe that's that's certainly possible, but I'm not necessarily leaning to that being probable. I would expect some corrections and some consolidation along the way. So I think this week's candle will be important, how it closes. Going back to Tezos, the BTC chart, you see it kind of just keeps bouncing off this lower edge of support, right? Kind of does look a little bit like a head and shoulders, but as long as we keep bouncing off of this support line, then if Bitcoin consolidates a bit, perhaps we'll push to a new USD high. So far on the USD charts, it's just kind of been stair-stepping up, nice bull flags along the way. Let's see. Zcash finally start to make a move. It's certainly been a while. All right, Zcash. I guess I had some areas marked out. So I guess I already had this accumulation area down here marked out for Zcash. Kind of lines up with some previous lows on the USD charts, right? Just broke out of this range. It just broke out of this range. So this market is certainly lagging behind everything else. But for those who, here's the thing, look, this market's only up 89%. Everything else went up a lot higher, right? Do you expect a 40% correction on XTZ as well? Certainly possible. I mean, altcoins are a lot more volatile and less liquid, so you can get 40, 50% corrections on all kinds of alts, easy. You know, no problemo. Almost like, you know, so Bitcoin having more than a 40% correction would be something to take a pause at. Altcoins having more than 40% correction, that's kind of standard business with alts for the most part. But when you look at altcoins on the larger picture, regardless of if we get corrections or not, like that, if you look at alts on the larger picture, we are still very, very close to the bottom. So it's interesting about something like Zcash right now that only went up, you know, 90% compared to other things. In my opinion, if I didn't have enough crypto exposure and I wanted to get some more crypto exposure, for me, rather than parking my money in shit that's already up 400 or 500% and FOMOing into stuff that's already rallied, I would try to find quality projects that have been lagging behind, that haven't gained nearly as much, that might just be starting out, might have to play a bit of catch up, right? Something like this, right? We're just broke out of this range finally and has been lagging behind the rest of the markets. Now, obviously, if Bitcoin has a massive dump, then Zcash will probably end up coming back into the zone. You look at on the BTC charts, it made new lows on the BTC charts, just kind of like perpetual selling. But here's an interesting pattern that reminds me of Ethereum in 2000 and was it 17 or 16? I think it was 2016. Reminds me of Ethereum 2016 on the BTC charts, right? Everybody's like, ah, it's dying, blah, blah, blah. Maximalists posting charts, it's going to zero. It's a scam, right? So you get this, this bear channel, breaks out of the bear channel, has a throwback, makes a higher low, pushes out, breaks horizontal resistance, kind of like a double bottom after the break of a bear channel. That's generally a reversal sign, in my opinion. Let me show you an example of a previous time I traded something very similar. And Zcash has been getting a lot of hate. Everyone's calling it that shitty coin that just keeps dumping and never goes up and all this stuff. And you know, it's having lines up with 2020, and I wouldn't be surprised to see it at 4 digits. I wouldn't be surprised if in 2020 to 2021 that I didn't see, if I didn't see Zcash at least $1,000. That would surprise me if it didn't make it to that area. Doesn't mean it will. Obviously, there's no guarantees. Who knows? Maybe maybe their zero proofs algo got exploited and there's no way of telling, and maybe someone secretly mined coins that aren't supposed to exist or something like that. You never know. This is crypto. You gotta account for all possibilities. But let me just show you. In my opinion, this is kind of a little bit of a reversal sign. BTC charts. Let me show you that for Ethereum. Everyone was hating on Ethereum. You know, Ethereum, oh, it's such a scam, right? You have this this bear channel, just kind of channeling, selling. Capitulation, some VC got their Ethereum hacked and the hacker dumped it all in the market, forced capitulation. A bounce play, breaks the line, kind of like a double bottom. This is an Adam and Eve double bottom, makes a higher high to break out, take out that horizontal resistance, consolidates, and then breaks out higher. So similar kind of setup, not exact, but similar. Instead of this double bottom, this Adam and Eve were kind of like equal. Actually, this one went a little bit lower, it looks like, but they were kind of almost equal, V, and then rounded, whereas Zcash made a slightly higher low, right? Slightly higher low, right? Very similar, but not exactly the same. A little bit of volume picking up there, right? So the next phase made a higher low. The next phase would be to see if it can take out some higher levels. If it can take out this point of resistance, then I think we're starting to rock and roll on Zcash, right? So anyway, so I always personally lean towards buy low, sell high. I would rather hunt for something that still looks like it's in the gutter than go throwing my money on you know, some at an area where someone else is you know, taking profit from the bottom type of thing, right? Doge. Let's look at Doge. I haven't traded that in a while. It hasn't dropped to 20 satoshis, so 20 below 30 satoshis. Almost. Oh, interesting. It's kind of producing something similar. My ideal would be sub 30, my ideal area, but there's a lot of support in through here. I'm not going to be buying more Doge unless it drops low. That's just my rules with Doge. If it drops lower than 30, I'll probably buy some. You know, I like buying it in the 20 satoshi, but you know, I don't need to buy that. I don't need to buy that because I have Holochain, another low satoshi yet new new low satoshi coin. So Holochain made a new USD all-time high. Obviously, some nice some profit taking happening up here. I wonder if there's actually some divergence. No, not really. I'm still holding. I was up 6.5x for my entry. I'm gunning for 10. Maybe I'm getting greedy, but I'm gunning for 10. I'm very patient. I can wait. The reason why I say that is because even though it's going up on the USD charts, even though it made new highs on the USD charts, I want to see if this thing can make a new high on the BTC charts. Can this be one of those low Satoshi coins that comes up and tags 100, similar to a Dogecoin? Is that possible? If that were to happen, then on the USD chart, the price would probably, you know, double or triple from where it is now in the USD chart. So if it doubles on the USD chart, then I've hit more than a 10x, and then it's time to harvest, right? It's time to harvest some profit, shove some cash into the bank, and then wait. Maybe load up on another dip. Why not long-term hold? I'm going to do both. I'm going to take some profit, would be my first profit target, and I'm going to hold the rest. I'll hold the rest because I think we're still fairly early in the cycle. But to me, taking some profit off the table if I hit a 10x on something is just good risk management. To me, I think that's patient enough. But you know, sure, it could go up to like 50, 100x or whatever, but it's just risk management. You take some off the table. At a 10x, I could sell, 10% of my original position and take out all my initial risk capital, and then everything else is completely risk-free profit, right? Then it could do whatever it wants. I'd probably take more than 10%. At 10x, I'd probably sell like at least a quarter, 25% or whatnot on the 10x, and put that on the bank instead of leaving it on exchange. Because one of the benefits of being patient and trading the bigger swings instead of the smaller swings is you don't have to take on unnecessary counterparty risk. I've been holding this thing since almost a year now. I think since like July of last year. So if I take some profit, put it in the bank, maybe I wait a few months or whatever. If I see a nice correction, I see an area where I'm interested in buying, then I'd probably take some money out of the bank and buy some again, right? Maybe buy back everything that I sold. So larger time frames can allow you to take your time and do that sort of thing. One interesting thing is all the Bitcoin clones, all the Bcash, the Bcashes have been had a good pump, right? Actually, let me just look at BSV here for a second. I wonder if it had a sell on the news at the conference. See, I think they had some conference today or something like that. I know they sold on Bitfinex, right? So this candle, like, look, here's the thing, right? Remember I talked about candle sizes, and when candle sizes get really large, that is usually a sign to start taking profit, right? This 1 day candle was larger than all of this price action in 1 day with volume, right? Pushes up a little higher, and then they have the conference, sell on the news. See, this is a sell on the news example. This is a good sell on the news example. It pumped into the conference. Who knows why? Maybe maybe there's a guiding hand that helped that as some additional advertisement. Who knows? One can only speculate what happens behind the scenes and who the other market participants are, since we're all playing this game blindfolded from where our participants are. Right, a 36% correction on that on the conference. So this is a good sell on the news example. Big wick, sellers stepping in, not quite at prior resistance, but certainly high enough. And on the BTC chart, made these gains fairly quickly. Let's see, on the week, pretty much 2 weeks, it made these gains in 2 weeks, right? In 2 weeks, it reclaimed months of selling, right? Remember I talked about that months ago, not for SV, but for crypto in general. When we start to get the popcorn effect on some alts, I said that oftentimes when we've had bearish for so long and things were after that slow bleed, especially after the slow bleed, where it just keeps selling and selling and selling and selling and selling, it seems like the selling takes forever. People get so despaired they forget how quickly, they forget it's crypto and how quickly a market can regain that, right? It's counterforce. It's counterforce, right? This is counterforce to the bearishness, to the selling pressure. It's counterforce to all the hate. I know I've hated on this coin too, right? But it's counterforce to that, and that's kind of what the markets behave like. So just to kind of paint a picture here, you know, usually after the slow grind phase, which is like the last phase of the bear trend, the slow bleed, where just you're not getting a lot of volatility, it's just slow selling, slow capitulation till kind of near the end. Oftentimes in a couple of weeks, couple months, whatever, it can regain much of what it lost very quickly with a couple large green candles. And people forget that. When they're at the bottom, at the lows, they're so despaired. They're like, this is never going to recover again. It's over, right? Just go back and look at social media from just a few months ago, right? Buy low, sell high. So as long as that cycle keeps repeating itself, it'll make buying those kind of dips and accumulating a lot easier, right? But you also have to control your own emotions, because it's easy to get swept up in the waves, right? You have to have your own center of willpower, your own center of will and gravity, and not just get swept up like a leaf in the wind, right? By everyone else's chaos and despair or FOMO or whatever, right? So, grab some water. Other altcoins. So Cosmos made a nice little push. Let's see. Diamonds, Bytecoin. I guess this is pumping because it sounds like Bitcoin. I don't know. That's what I love about alt season, right? Just a bunch of crap. Look at EOS? Sure, I'll look at EOS. High low on the BTC chart. Bit of a lopsided head and shoulder, inverse head and shoulders. A little bit lopsided here, but you can see these points are kind of equal, so it is like a shoulder if it did break out of that. The USD chart. I'd be surprised if I was pushing into new highs. Let's see if there's a better USD chart than this. There you go. Broke out of some horizontal resistance. The thing is that the reason why I haven't been extremely keen or excited to take profit on alts, even if we do hit local tops or whatnot, because it depends on the alt. Something like this, the candle sizes haven't gone parabolic yet, right? These are still very healthy candles. They chop around, consolidate, but you know, if I start to see green candles, a green candle that looks like this, and a green candle like we just saw with Bitcoin SV or some of those other coins that pumped, right? Something large where it dwarfs the size of all the other candles, that's usually a good take profit signal. That's why I've been patient with Tezos. Where are those parabolic candles on Tezos? Right? I'm not seeing any. I'm not seeing any, right? This candle is certainly larger than the previous one, so we talked about that. So that candle was probably, you know, right up to there. So you can kind of see that the candles are getting larger. If it continues up, who knows? Maybe in the next candles we get even bigger than that, right? Then you start to get a little bit closer to local top, and those candles got really big. There's a few markets that went absolutely nuts. It was BitTorrent. Let me just, I know BitTorrent kind of made some moves. Okay, these candles are getting a lot larger. Still newish market, so it's kind of still in price discovery. It's a Tron token, Tron bot BitTorrent. I actually don't really think that BitTorrent needs a token, but it's a low Satoshi coin, so it could certainly do well, right? What was it? There's another few that went nuts. Matic, thank you. That's what I was thinking. Matic. Thanks, CoinDiva. Let's look at Matic. Okay, we looked at this last week. We were talking about so this is what I'm talking about, right? I mean, look at the size of this candle here. One week candle, 139%. Let's check that on the daily, right? So you see this candle was like 80% one candle. From here, it would have gone up another 50% and then crashed. Let's see, USD. As far as dip buying, right? After the first crash, in my opinion, the first dip's always the best dip. The first dip is where you get the biggest bounce, right? I think CoinDiva caught this dip, if I'm not mistaken. Saw some folks trading in the room. And then the bounces get weaker. You can get into a slow bleed where they're not producing enough fruit. So yeah, it's certainly possible this could still make another leg up. But to me, it would feel more like a coin toss at this point. So if I were interested in something like this for a dip, even though it's at 61.8%, because it's an altcoin, you know, I would anticipate maybe even as low as here or somewhere in between. Maybe retest that area. We'll see. You know, if it wicked down quickly, that would be a really good dip buy. Possible good dip buy for a bounce play. But the first shakeout is usually the best. It's usually bounces. So on this shakeout here, it almost tagged 61.8%. So let's say one bought over in that zone. And then to measure targets for the bounce, it bounced almost up to 61.8%, 0.618 on the fib. Boom, boom. Right? Kind of sweet spot dip buy, sweet spot bounce play on the retracements. So that's an interesting one. So anyways, you can see the size of those candles getting larger, right? So those are the kind of parabolic candles that I look for as strong take profit signals, right? So you just really, at the end of the day, it's about training one's mind to get excited about buying when the market's starting to gutter and look like shit, and you know, get excited. The only FOMO one should be doing up here is FOMOing to send one's coins to an exchange to take profit, not FOMOing to buy this shit, right? It's easier said than done. I mean, you know, we could all say it theoretically or whatnot, but when you're in it's a habit. It's a muscle that requires practice. It's just a habit. Our whole life is just a series of habits, right? Our mind is just a program. It's just a computer that you program it with habits. So people who start off because they don't know any better, they have the bad habit of wanting to buy shit that's apple pie in the sky and sell stuff that's in the gutter and looks scary. That's the habit, right? And that's where the majority of noobs who come into crypto and come into trading, investing, that's what the majority of them do, right? So you have to do the opposite. You have to train the opposite. And you train the opposite not by hypothesizing about it, not by watching me do it, not by watching an update or a YouTube video or reading a book or doing the I Ching or something or whatever, right? You don't develop the habit by any of that. You develop the habit by, first of all, having a awareness of those simple strategies, and then being able to apply practical application. Practical application, but one needs to start off with small amounts to build up the muscle. You work up to it, just like strength training, right? You have to build it up through repetition and strength training. The more you do it, the more you experience it in the trenches, on the battlefield, the better you'll get at it. The more of a contrarian you'll be, the more of a habit it will become. The better you get at it, the more of a habit you become. The next thing you know, you're going in with bigger and bigger size, right? Next thing you know, you're making crap tons of money on the bounce plays, right? Someone's asking, how do you ultimately cash out big 6 or 7 figure profits when what? Well, I'll tell you one thing. The best time to do it is when everyone's FOMOing. Look at the volume that happens, right? High volume means there's a lot of buyers and sellers. High volume means there's a lot of hungry fishies who want those orders, right? They want you to sell to them. There are hungry buyers coming in the market. That's usually the best time to sell, right into strength. Big volume. Usually when markets go parabolic, it's when daily withdrawal limit is 10K. Well, then obviously you might need to use another exchange or do some more special KYC to bump up those limits, right? Or you take your time and you withdraw 10K a day, right? A little bit each day. 10K, 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 30 days, that's 300K. There's a book, 300K in 30 days. The 300K in 30-day diet. All right. Let's go to some of these questions. Okay. Let's do a half-hour of questions. If BTC tops 35-40%, what would you expect for alts? Equally and then faster recovery or even much more? All right. So let's take Ethereum as an example for this, since I haven't touched upon Ethereum. Maybe I'll kill 2 birds with 1 stone on the questions with this. Okay. So let's just look at this overall larger Ethereum trend. Let's look at it where there's more data. Poloniex has some of the oldest data. Those battle-worn exchanges that have been around a long time. All right, so if you look at this overall larger trend, this overall bigger picture, in my opinion, a lot of charts that look like this look like they're just starting, right? Looks like they're just starting. They're at the lower end of the spectrum. There are no parabolic candles here on Ethereum, right? It's just slowly inching its way up, making some bull flags, some bull pennants, some consolidation patterns, making slightly higher lows, slowly breaking out of the range, throwback to retest, lots of consolidations, taking its time, just broke out of some horizontal resistance, just had a throwback on that horizontal resistance. It's been consolidating. It's not in a rush. It doesn't have to move for anybody. It's just taking its time, right? It's a Sunday driver, right? Just strolling through the park, right? It's just taking its time. Now, when a market starts to do stupid things like this, you know, V-topping and going nuts, candles getting bigger, shakeouts getting bigger, or something like this, right? Then one can say, all right, well, this is probably coming, it's gone vertical now. We're going straight up in a line. One could probably say that, all right, now we're getting into the distribution. Time for some profit taking, time to batten down the hatches before hurricane shitstorm, right? But if you look at the bigger picture in the meta trend, we're at the lower end of the spectrum. Lower end of the spectrum. But that doesn't mean that we can't have corrections. You know, lower end of the spectrum, there's nothing say that a price can't, you know, shoot down like that, have a big correction, scare everybody, shake them all up, right? That can certainly happen in bull trends, right? And because of correlation of Bitcoin, if Bitcoin had a massive dump, if Bitcoin had a 30 to 40% correction, I would anticipate that we would see corrections in altcoins as well. But that doesn't change the fact that they're at the lower end of the spectrum, right? They're at the lower end. So maybe it would require them to, you know, chop around and then bounce and consolidate or do whatever if we had a big shakeout. So in relation to that question, if we had a big shakeout, that's what I would anticipate. I'd anticipate corrections on altcoins, and then I would anticipate consolidation and continued higher lows, but just kind of taking its time, except for the ones that go parabolic, right? The ones that are maybe a little bit newer, that go a little bit parabolic, they might have to bleed out a little bit more. The higher and the faster price goes up, the harder the crash is going to be, right? You know, that old saying, the bigger they are, the harder they fall type of thing. Well, it's kind of similar at the market, right? And it shoots up. How about alt season in this picture? Well, we've kind of been in an alt season for the past several months, in my opinion, or the early stages of one. Alt season is like a thermostat. It's got varying degrees, or it's like the weather, or it's like a season, right? You could have a warm winter day or a cool summer day. You know, there's a thermostat like what's hot and what's cold, right? For some people, if you're living in Antarctica, and you know it's like minus 10 Celsius, that might be a warm day for you. Or 0 might be a warm day if you're living up at the North Pole, right? But if you're in the tropics, Grand Cayman, 0 would be freezing cold, right? So it's all varying degrees. So I kind of like to look at alt seasons almost like categories of hurricanes or tornadoes. Category 1 being like little gains, and category 2 and so on and so forth. This is obviously category 5. It'll probably be a while before we see another category 5 on altcoins. But the more parabolic and the bigger the candles get, the higher the category, right? I would probably slot Ethereum into a category 2 right now. Right? Maybe 1 or 2. Maybe it was 1 down here as it was slowly making higher lows. 1 or 2, somewhere like that. This is all subjective, right? It's all subjective. So, but it's still at the lower end of the spectrum. So that's kind of how I quantify that. That said, it still made some nice gains, right? You look at this, it still went up, 245% or whatnot. See how much it went up here. So technically went up even higher than this dead cat percentage wise. So it's all scale too, right? So I'd say maybe like a category 2. So I think we're at, and it depends on the market. Some have already kind of gone a little bit into higher categories. It's usually mixed. All right. How do you ultimately cash out to a 10 or 25? Okay, so we answered that. I guess you'd have to do it if you don't KYC for higher limits or switch amongst multiple exchangers or change exchangers with a higher withdrawal limit, then it's just patience, 10 to 25K a day. Pete, please remind folks to check their baker's capacity before delegating. Just an example, TZ Envoy has been over delegated since Thursday and people keep delegating more and more. They're not earning anything. mytezosbaker.com. Yeah, that's a very good point. For anyone who's baking, go to that site, mytezosbaker.com, and just make sure. I mean, here's the thing, if you're trying to bake fresh, if you've already been delegating to them, much earlier, then you're going to get your rewards because you're doing it earlier. But if you're trying to delegate and you're new, just trying to delegate, if something's over delegated, you're not gonna get the rewards. All right, got a request to look at Neo in the Matrix. Neo is pulling a similar Zcash on the BTC charts. Similar pattern. Bear channel, break, higher low. That kind of looks like a double bottom. Very interesting. USD chart. Still very much looks like it's on the lower end of the spectrum, but this is what happens. So here's an example of a correction of something that's still pushed up slightly higher thus far on the USD chart, but had a big correction. It was still bullish. The correction was still a higher low, but it dumped close to 40%. Sold off close to 40% before pushing up again, right? So that can happen. That's the kind of thing I would look for in alts. So just basically translate a huge Bitcoin correction, in my opinion, unless it's like the ultimate bull trap that hits into new lows. In my opinion, this correction would just create higher lows and corrections on altcoins. Maybe they'd have to come down a little bit. So it's certainly at the lower end of the spectrum as well, just like a lot of things. And if one were to take out a breakout trade, the key with breakout trades is to have an area to cut out, to have a stop area where you'd want to cut the trade. So, if one were to catch a breakout here, perhaps one could set a stop there. That would be like 13% or whatever past the resistance point if it were to push up again, right? The reason why I say that with breakouts is it's better to set stops is because there's a higher risk of buying a top. So if you go to buy a breakout, and it's like, alt season is like musical chairs, right? When the music stops, you don't want to be caught holding the bag. You don't want to be caught buying the top on a fake breakout, right? We saw that today with Bitcoin. It was trying to break out of resistance and it trapped at 9K and then had a dump, right? That you're getting diminishing rewards the higher it goes as far as breakouts are concerned. So to me, if a market like Bitcoin has gone up a ton and is hitting close to resistance, for me, it's better to wait for a dip. Or if you're going to do breakouts, then you got to have faster targets, right? Risk to reward starts to change a bit, requires a bit more babysitting. BAT. What's BAT doing? Oh, BAT's on the BTC chart. It's not looking so hot. So I had this. So here's an example of getting trapped. Like an all-time high breakout. Price went up on the BTC chart. Price went up 40% and V-topped. Came all the way back down. an instance like this, if you're to catch the breakout, you might not want to wait to the next pivot low. That's a bit low. I think that percentage-wise, that would be a little bit. So if you're to catch that breakout, you're probably not going to have a 21% stop. So in my opinion, if it were to ramp up like this, if you didn't take profit and then it comes down below that line, then in my opinion, it'd be a good idea to cut out. So this one dropped about 58% on the BTC charts. USD charts are interesting. It just looks like it's kind of consolidating, right? So obviously there'd be opportunity cost in holding and having held this rather than Bitcoin, but you know, with a mixed bag, mixed portfolio, then it's not a huge deal, right? So it looks like it could possibly be consolidating for another push. But on the BTC chart, it had a big sell-off. Let's see where it came to. This isn't a good sell-off. The only good part of this sell-off was this area. This is just like a lot of this, we're in a slow grind, right? This is a nice little bounce. But you can see, check out before the bounce play happened. See how it was like slowly selling off and then the candles get bigger? So you have this big candle, and then this candle is the biggest red candle. So this one red candle dropped 15%, and from that point, had a nice little bounce. Boom, hit some counterforce. But now we're getting into a bit of a slow bleed here. These candles are fairly small, and it's just kind of grinding down. Eventually, it'll bounce off support. But it's almost like it's creating a bit of a bear channel now, kind of like what we've been seeing Zcash or whatever. So one way to trade this, you know, let it do its thing, let it bleed out, you know, and if it can break out of the channel and start to pop a higher low, then that might be a re-entry signal, right? One sec. All right. For an alt breakout trades, is it better to break out something like GNT or TC or something like XTC? That could also be a long-term hold. Well, yeah, I mean, it depends. If you like the project and you like the coin and you'd be okay with holding it longer, then that could certainly be good for your breakout trade. But I would still, if I was taking a breakout trade, I'd probably define some profit target levels and maybe some risk to reward just for that style of trade setup. But you can certainly do both. You could do a breakout, keep some of it in your long-term capital bucket, and then have some for shorter profit targets, or an area where somewhere you would cut it if it didn't quite hit those targets, so if it dropped further. Let's look at GNT. GNT is really kind of lagging. I'm not as keen on the DApps anymore. You're not really seeing me buying DApp tokens these days. This one's kind of lagging behind some of the others. Looks like it's trying to break out of this level. It's a major line in the sand, point of resistance. So yeah, just because it's lagging behind the others doesn't necessarily mean that it's junk. Could just be a slow cooker. Looks like it's testing here, a little bit of a lopsided inverse head and shoulders. So if it breaks out of this resistance zone, then in my opinion, that would be a breakout trade setup. On the BTC charts, where is it at? It's kind of Is it at all-time lows? Yeah, it's kind of at all-time lows, close to it. So need to see some follow through on this. WTC. Interesting little pop. The USD is showing. That's really choppy. Nice little consolidation pattern right here. Looks like it kind of wants to break out. Lower end of the spectrum just kind of popped off as support, right? So looks all right to me. Still in the buy low area, buy low zone. Lower end of the spectrum. Poly. Let's see, Poly. Beatrix had it longer, I think. New BTC lows. Where's there a fiat version of this? Let's see. Yeah, I think these are new lows, USD as well. Volume's been picking up. Definitely a little uptick in volume at these lows. Right, see this? It's like 14, 15 million right now. It fluctuates. For a long time, we were only a few million down at the lows. So slight uptick in volume. Nothing huge though. Strat. Oof. Lower end of the spectrum. Made some good money on Strat in 2017, but not the biggest fan anymore because I was a bigger fan of it when it was 5 cents. Doesn't mean it won't go up, but still, where is that coin? That's a buck. This was like, you know, a top coin back in those days and just kind of fizzled a lot. Kind of back to its roots, although it had a way lower volume when it first launched. Right? But if things continue on their trajectory, it'll probably see some attention, although it certainly has been underperforming. This has definitely been underperforming. It's probably a lot. Some of these coins probably have a lot more bag holders than other coins. You notice how a lot of like newer projects, fresher projects have been going up like mad because they've had a lot less bag holders from the last cycle, right? I mean, there was a lot of people were all over Strat in the previous cycle, and that probably produced a lot more bag holders. But bag holders for a market that doesn't necessarily have the liquidity and the market cap and the volume and stuff, right? Whereas like some newer projects that get launched, you know, they don't have that same baggage, right, necessarily. And other projects are a little bit more liquid, tend to be able to get more buyers to chew through all the bag holders. And then also one thing you got to take into account with all these projects is that, no, I'm not necessarily saying older projects have less chance. Look at Litecoin. Litecoin has been doing really well this cycle. But what I'm saying is that when you're looking at mid caps, ICO mid caps and stuff, like we don't know what's happening behind the scenes, right? I said this funny, and I'm not saying this in relation to Stratis or anything like that. More could be any project, any coin, just in general. I said the altcoin markets will stop dumping when the founders stop dumping their tokens on you. When they stop dumping their and early whales start dumping all their free monopoly money that they just printed for themselves, right? When they're done dumping on the markets, then you'll have a reversal. Because a lot of these projects, you gotta think, look behind the curtain, right? Someone raises an ICO, oh, we just raised millions of dollars and we'll keep 30% of the supply for ourselves, and you know, and in a bear trend, oh, got to pay for some costs, dip into the coffers, dip into those tokens we just printed out of thin air. There's plenty of people want to buy them up. Just keep selling, right? I'm sure there's all kinds of projects that I'm sure do that. I'm not saying that in relation to Strat or anything like that. Strat was definitely a project that I liked back in the day, but again, you know, I liked it a lot more at 5 cents. Better risk reward. It's funny, like when you, even though the price is low, when you get in on something that was 5 cents and make money off of it, it's even hard buying it for like $1. Something just doesn't feel right about that. Because you look at the amounts that you can buy compared to what you had before when it was 5 cents, and it's just doesn't quite have the same kick to it. Do you have any views on Tezos lawsuits, perhaps unimportant over the long term? We'll see. It seems like a hostile money grab lawsuit to me. If they won, I think it would have far greater implications for the entire crypto ecosystem than just Tezos, because then that would create some case law and some precedents, some historical precedents for law, and other laws are built on that precedence. Other rulings and judgments are built on that foundation. So it could have a much further impact, far-reaching impact beyond just Tezos. But you know, Tezos, what I like about it, it's kind of like another honey badger of crypto. It's like Bitcoin. You know, you keep throwing crap at it, keep throwing garbage at it, and it just keeps getting stronger and stronger, right? Tezos has already been through quite a lot of crap. Still continues to go through some crap. So yeah, it's anti-fragile. This is what strengthens and tests decentralized network, right? Since their goals towards decentralization, it's a decentralization similar to what I talked about as far as hot and cold. It's a thermostat. It's not an off and on switch, right? You can get more and more decentralized and less decentralized, right? The more nodes you put on the network, the more decentralized it becomes, type of thing. The further the supply and coin distribution, which will be linked to votes related to being able to vote on the network, the more decentralized it becomes. So it has room to become more decentralized even than what it is now, right? Whereas there's some projects that are a lot more centralized and will probably stay centralized. No, it's an old lawsuit. It's not a new one. When you're reviewing coins, would be much appreciated if you could also share your thoughts about coin fundamentals, the project value proposition, network potential, important history. This would be helpful for people like me who are still learning about the projects. All right, so one thing that I often look for nowadays when investing in coins is I like to invest in networks versus dApps. I would rather invest in a blockchain that could be its own ecosystem rather than invest in one application built on top of another ecosystem, right? So to me, buying into a network is a lot more robust. So that's one thing that I look for personally. And number two, I like to pick dominant networks. I like to pick the ones that dominate, the trendsetters that dominate in their specific algorithm, right? Any other clone that's created from that algorithm, if it's proof of work, is an inferior copy, is a less secure copy, right? It doesn't matter what one's political or philosophical disposition is. The cold, hard facts are that any lesser network in an algorithm, any lesser coin in an algorithm is subject to 51% attack because the majority of the hashing power and proof of work is going to the dominant coin, right? We always saw that with ETC. I really liked ETC back in the day. I was a big ETC fan. I made a lot of money off of it. I was philosophically against the hard fork that Ethereum had. It was all around immutability, around the DAO hack. Philosophically against that. That said, the markets don't care about my opinions, my philosophical disposition. If you look at Ethereum and ETC, Ethereum is obviously the dominant coin. It is the clear winner, right? Ethereum is Ethereum, right? It's got the most liquidity, market cap. It dominates the algorithm. It's got the most hashing power for that algorithm. ETC was 51% attacked this year, right? Let me just look at this, 51% attack. There's a website. What's that? Is it this one? Costs of 51% attacks. So Bitcoin, let's just look at this, for example. Right, Bitcoin is the dominant SHA-256 algorithm, right? That's the dominant one. All the little shitty forks, all the wannabe Bitcoin copycats, the Fugazi knockoffs, the ones that you go to buy some kind of brand knockoff in a back alley and it falls apart by the time you get home, right? Those can be attacked a lot easier for a lot less money. So Bitcoin costs you close to $1 million if you want to attack it for an hour, right? You can't even rent any hashing power to do that. Then if you look at like Bitcoin Cash ABC 123, it's only $31, right? If you look at the grand vision of Satoshi, $11,000, right? Ethereum, 160,000 to try to 51% attack it. You can't rent enough hashing power, but Ethereum Classic, you can do it for about $9,000, and you can get enough hashing power, 96% you can rent. It's quite, anybody who's got 10K to blow can 51% attack this if they wanted to for an hour, right? Then you have all these other little shitty coins that could easily 51% attack for pocket change. You could reach into your pocket, pull some bills out of your pocket, and rent some hashing power, and there you go, right? So the dominant algos are the most important. Bitcoin private is even crappier. Look at that. You could attack this for $9. What's the price doing? price of Bitcoin private doing? Where's Bitcoin private? Anyways, so that's kind of the way I see it with proof of work coins, right? And then proof of stake, I still like to go with the dominant algorithms on proof of stake, but you can't 51% attack it unless you buy up a bunch of supply. Well, here's the cool thing with Tezos. You know, first of all, if you want to 51% attack Tezos, you're going to have to buy up 51% of the supply. What's that going to do to the supply, right? Second of all, if you're a baker, you have to put up a 10% deposit on your coins that you're baking. If you try to game the network and cheat the network, you can lose your 10% deposit. You know, so if you buy 51% of the supply and you try to 51% attack the network, you stand to lose 5% of the entire supply as a punishment, right? So much more difficult to 51% attack it. You can't just rent coins for somebody to start staking, right? To do that, but you can rent hashing power. You don't even have to buy the gear. You don't even have to like the coin. You could take fiat, and you can take that fiat and buy hashing power and attack a network, steal a bunch of coins, and keep dumping and trashing that network and coins just with fiat, right? You know, there's any state, any country could print up enough fiat to destroy many networks. Get a bunch of. Now, the thing with something like Bitcoin, though, they can't just go renting a bunch of hashing power off of people because there's not enough hashing power available for rent. So if someone wanted to try that on Bitcoin, they would have to go build their own chips and to create a warehouse and, you know, have their ASICs and stuff and then try that, right? So whereas with proof of stake, they can't just attack it with fiat. The only thing they can attack with a proof of stake coin with fiat is to attack the markets by buying up the coin. And that would pump the price. And then it becomes harder and harder to get 51% of the supply because the more supply you buy, the higher the price would go, the more expensive it would get per coin, right? So if someone had tons of money and they're trying to buy up 51% of the supply, it would keep jacking the price up higher and higher and higher and higher and higher, right? So it's, I like having a bit of a mix between the two. Okay, we're coming up on an hour and a half. We're going to wrap up soon. What do you think of the fundamentals of Ravencoin project? It's a security token and connected to T0. I don't know much about the fundamentals on Raven. I know it had a good rally. Ooh, wow. Is this real? Wait a minute. No. I don't know what that was. Suddenly it looked like it had a massive dump, but I was going to say, was that just me? Did I see a massive red candle? It just disappeared on me. Anyways, a little bit of a glitch. I was going to say, if there was a massive red candle, I was going to say that that would definitely be a buy the dip moment. Kind of looks like it's producing a higher low. Looks like it wants to break out. Had a nice run up. It was one of the first coins to make a nice run. Went up higher, a lot higher than a lot of other projects. Big correction. It's consolidating, so this would be the next breakout point after a correction consolidation. Then on the BTC charts, it broke out of a bear channel produced a higher low. Another similar situation to what we saw with Zcash, right? All right, last question. We're going to wrap it up. I know you mentioned Zcash. What are a couple projects that are maybe newer, don't have many bag holders, and haven't taken off yet for someone wanting to go heavy and things low? Would love to have bought in lower on Tezos, but I'm sure there are some great new projects that haven't gone up much yet. That's a good question. To me, there's like a sweet spot. You want to get something that's new but not super micro cap. A lot of micro caps are pure garbage. You might win the lottery and get a really good one or a couple of good ones if you pick the right one. But most of them are just kind of liquid garbage. That's a good question. Nothing really comes to mind per se. And that doesn't necessarily mean there is nothing. It just means I haven't taken the time recently to go digging around at fundamentals on new projects coming out, right? So bitcointalk.org is a good place to see announcements for new projects. You just got to be careful because there's a lot of garbage. There's a lot of scams in those altcoins. So I would say, obviously, anything new that's been hitting Binance, like a lot of Binance IEOs have been doing really well. A lot of new markets on Binance have been doing fairly well. Cosmos is new and exciting. Like this is one I've been eyeing that I think is great, but I think it's like 50x the ICO price or something like that. So would have been a nice tip though. But it wants to go up higher. Nice volume on that. So this one I wouldn't say this one's low. This one's definitely not low. 50x the ICO price. So, all right, folks, it's about an hour and 40 minutes. We'll wrap it up there. So happy Thursday. Hope everyone has a great weekend. We'll see what the weekend and next week has in store for us. Thus far it's been a fairly exciting couple of months. I'm really eyeing to see if we can get to that 10K area on Bitcoin. And if we do, to celebrate, I'll probably take a little bit of skim just to cream off the top, a little bit of profit off the table, just a bit of Bitcoin, just to celebrate. It's like taking profit on Bitcoin is like popping champagne, you know? All right, folks, take care. Cheers.